The Pilgrim Life is brought to you by the StarQuest Podcast Network and is made possible by our many generous supporters. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/donate.
Hi there, and welcome to Pilgrim Life Podcast, where we find the sacred in everyday life. My name is Deborah, and I'm joined by my partner, Sandy.
Hi, everyone.
Today, we're going to talk about the Camino de Santiago, but also it'll pertain to other pilgrimages because we have a specific question. And I'm going to ask Sandy a question right now to start this, which is, Sandy, have you ever gone with a large group to walk the Camino de Santiago?
That kind of depends.
Depends, really? Like, how many people have you walked with before? Like, that you actually physically brought with you and walked the whole way with?
Largest group is 2, both my son and my daughter. But in terms of walking with a group, I've walked with a group of people that I've met on the Camino. Well, but I've never been responsible for all of them.
Well, and I think that's going to be the theme of today's podcast, which is it better to walk a pilgrimage like the Camino or like the Chemin de Sanctuary or like Chamayo, some of the other walking pilgrimages, individually, solo, or with a few other people, or as a large group, because they each have, benefits and I think drawbacks. So, how many pilgrimages have you done lately?
Lately, none.
Lately, yeah, none. Lately, well, let me just say it. No, I got back from Spain a little while ago. I went on my very first big group pilgrimage, which I led, or helped lead, there were 17 of us, so it's all 16 of my people that I was responsible for made it back in one piece. I almost didn't make it back in one piece, but that's the breaks. But it was a different experience. So I've been on one individual Camino, one with a friend, and then one group now. So I have one of each under my belt.
Lucky you, I think.
Yeah. So let's see, you've mostly done either solo or with one other person or 2 other people or 3 other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And,
right.
And honestly, I don't know what the experience is with a large group, where you're like responsible for them. I've been with large groups, people that I have met on the Camino and other pilgrimages, but the nice thing about that is that you can break away. Or you can stay behind, or you can, move faster, knowing that, you're going to meet, your group, later on at another town, but not really walking an entire stage, stage after stage, day after day with the same group of people. I've never had that experience before.
Yeah, I know. And I think we can start there and say that's probably one of the drawbacks for a large group. Well, it's, everything has its flip sides of positives and negatives. And so, yes, one of the things is with a large group is like everything's planned for you because it has to be, it has to be planned out where you're staying, because not every albergue, especially the municipal ones, will cater to groups. And so you kind of have to go the private route if you're going to do a group. Mm-hmm. And if you have, 17 people, you have to have that planned out ahead of time so that you know exactly where everybody's staying, so you're not hustling for a last minute place to stay with 17 people. So that's, for those who like to have everything structured and ready to go and no questions about where you're staying and how, and no worry about if you're going to have a bed at the end of the day, walking with a group is actually not too bad. But then you end up, staying with the same people, day after day and night after night. And it can be challenging. You have to, if there's any particular person within that group that you don't feel like you want to walk with, or you feel like you're not getting along, you can't really leave them behind.
Well, yeah, but it's just kind of like going on vacation, with an extended family.
Right.
Same issues arise, that like some people in the family, they want to do something. Other people in the family, they want to go out and do something else. And there might be a little bit of tension here and there. But, in the large scheme of things, you're still a family and you still stick together.
Yeah, that's true. I'd led a group of, for the most part, 20-year-olds. And this is something I noticed on the Camino. There are a lot of groups on the Camino during the summer, especially. A lot of school groups, a lot of youth, whether it's college or high school. And I noticed that the groups, yes, there definitely is some animosity as being part of a group for some pilgrims. They can't stand it because groups tend to be loud and unruly, especially if they're a young group. And so actually I was on the Camino Forum this week, and somebody was complaining about an American group of teenagers and how loud and all that. And it just, I was just kind of responded with, I just led a group, and there were certain nights that my group was loud and excited and happy to be where they were and had a good day, and maybe we're celebrating a little too much. And I was like, oh boy, we're going to get kicked out of this albergue. All of us, all 17 of us will be sleeping on the streets tonight. But then there are certain days that our group was praised for being, upstanding Camino citizens, if you would. And like, well, some days we were good and some days we were bad, but they still had a good time and still got what they wanted out of the Camino.
Yeah, but you know what? I would like to add to the comment that you just made, that I have been on many pilgrimages, where younger people have gone in groups, whether it's a school or a college or middle school, or perhaps like a parochial group. And I have to tell you, for those of us that tend to walk alone, or perhaps, with like a friend, when you get to see the joy that they're experiencing, it's quite uplifting. It's just to hear the laughter and hear the joy and just, see the experience just bursting out of them, that joy that all of us feel when we are on the Camino. I do recall a particular group of Spanish children. They must have been, I don't know, anywhere between 13 and 15 years of age. And they must have been about 40 or 50. And, they were doing the Camino, and, I was out in Santiago, and I remember this lovely young man that had a large, piece of cardboard, and it said, "I'm so happy I give out free hugs." And it's just to see that, it just kind of makes you, believe again in that joy that all of us can feel when we're connected, and especially when we're connected by our faith. Many of us have different ways of expressing it, and that is, I don't know, I guess just the joy of youth, can just, if we're open up to it, can be very jovial and it can be, very good to, for many of us, old people like me, ancient people like me.
Yeah. I had the experience. So I had 13 young women with me, and was it 13? 12 young women and 3 young men with me. And a lot of people who walked in my group decided to bring a friend along with them. And I remember one best friend team, if you would, 2 girls, and they were like, one was like, hey, I can't wait to do this, and her friend was like, I'm just going because she's going. And this friend had a horrible day, like walked to the top of a sombrero, had a not such a great experience with that, and then had an issue come up that made the rest of like the next day even equally as horrible. And I'm like, oh no, this is not what she signed up for. And then I will remember this probably as one of the things that I remember most about this particular last Camino, which is seeing her at the Pilgrim Mass, just glowing with joy. And you know, like I said, she was like, this wasn't her idea of fun. This wasn't her idea to begin with. She was just coming along to support her friend. But, you know, you could see, you know, just the, she probably got out more than she bargained for out of this, which I will always remember. So you never know.
Yeah, that's the thing about, you know, being a pilgrim. And it doesn't really matter, you know, whether you're out walking on an ancient route or, you know, you continue living the pilgrim life in, you know, in your everyday life, is that when you are open to the unexpected, and God, you know, shows in mysterious ways, when you open up your heart and you open up your mind and you set up your expectations aside, you know, the most incredible things happen. You know, the experience is just magnified, just, you know, like up here in the Arizona desert, you know, for example, sometimes, you know, it's like you're thinking, oh my God, you know, the desert, you know, it's like so barren, this and that. And then you just kind of go out, you know, for a drive and, you know, you're looking at the desert in bloom and it's gorgeous. Oh, yeah. It's absolutely gorgeous and lush and just beautiful. And it's pretty much the same thing, you know, on the Camino. If you are open, you will experience things that you otherwise would not.
Wouldn't. I agree. I mean, you know, and going with a group means that you have a chance to get to know people that are in your group on a level that you may not have had before in your regular life, you know, because, you know, I took university students, so they're all, maybe they knew somebody from class or they went to class with, you know, a couple people within the group, but it was a chance to meet people on a different level. And, you know, it's such a special experience. And then to go back home to the same house or in the same city and then be able to, you know, have somebody to talk to after the Camino, you know, that had almost the same exact experience you did. It's special. It's very special. Because, you know, the other day I was with the other instructor who was my other group leader, and we ran into one of the girls that who had just been on there, and it was like, you know, that special moment. I'm like, oh, how are you feeling? How are you doing? Are you adjusting well? You know, and it was like, you know, we've shared this experience now, and it's, you know, every time we see that person, it'll just be, you know, a nice remembrance and bonding moment.
I have to say, though, that I really do admire you, you know, for doing this, because I don't know that I would actually be able to do it, in all honesty. You know, I walk in a relaxed manner and I stop and I talk to people and, you know, it's like I just kind of go with the flow, you know, primarily. Yeah. I go with the flow. And sometimes, you know, it's like, I'll just walk, you know, 5 miles and then the next day I'll walk 20. You know, you just never know. Yeah. Not to mention the fact that, at 55, I really don't know that I could actually keep up the pace with young college students.
Well, and I think you're hitting on the other ways that people enjoy the Camino, which is solo. Like, that's a definite benefit of going by yourself, is you don't have to. You know, if you're physically not able to walk, you know, 20 kilometers a day, or you're sick and you need to slow down and take a rest day, or you feel like you're walking too slow and you need to speed it up, or maybe you want to keep, you know, you've met somebody different and you want to go ahead with them for a day or two, and then you decide you don't want to, then you can, you know, slow it down. So, you know, you have that luxury of oh, you know what, I'm going to stay where I'm going to stay tonight, and nobody has to make that decision for me, and I'll make that decision when I get there. And so there's a definite freedom in that that you don't get with a group experience.
And you know what? I'm not really sure what the experience with others is, but my own personal experience has been whenever I have been on pilgrimage on my own, it's always been a journey of self-discovery. And it's so, and sometimes, the journey of self-discovery, can be very difficult, but it's also very freeing. And you discover strengths that you didn't know you had. You discover frailties that you did not know you had. You rely far more on God's grace on you, than with others, like I said, like in a large group. And I will compare that, for example, to going to Mass. Sometimes I love going to Mass with my children, and sometimes it's like, no, I'm going by myself. And
like you need that time alone.
Yeah. And it, and in part is, for example, that there are times that I want to get to Mass earlier, or I want to stay after Mass, a little bit longer, or, I just need to focus and concentrate, on whatever it is, that I just gonna need to be on, that I need to be on my own. That doesn't take away from the fact, that I enjoy, like sharing the Mass, with like my children, but they can also go out and, do it on their own. And it's the same thing as whether, you're on pilgrimage on your own, or, you're going out like, with a friend. And, I will have to say that probably my first Camino is always going to be the most unbelievable, incredible experience of my life. My second most memorable was the one that you and I did together in Canada.
Yes.
I can honestly say that, we had incredible moments. We had fabulous moments. We also had our difficulties, but it's like we kept pushing ahead, and we kept going and going and going. And because of it, we have been able to string our friendship, our sisterhood as pilgrims, our faith has, deepened. And, that is seriously, one of my favorite pilgrimages. And,
you'll have to relive that in a couple episodes.
Absolutely.
Because I think people need to know more about that pilgrimage. I haven't been keeping up to. I know that this year they're doing a reunion for all pilgrims who walked this trail in Montreal, and I'm like, ooh, if I spoke better French, that would be fun to go to that.
My French since our last podcast has not improved. Just for your information, it's still as bad as it ever was, but I'm trying.
Yeah. This is so the class that my pilgrimage is part of. It's just wrapping up, it was an 8-week course. So 3 of it was on the Camino, and then 5 of it was studying, sociology of pilgrimage. So it was a very social sciences oriented course. And I gotta say, one of the great things that comes from taking this group is I get to, and having it as part of a class, is they've written out their reflections of what it was like for them at the beginning and then at the end.
Oh, wow.
And I gotta say that there's more than one of my students that was like, if I would have known how this was going to be at the very beginning, I would have walked it by myself. I think I would have gotten more out of it by walking it by myself.
Wow.
But when I was recruiting for this trip, a lot of them didn't. It's kind of one of those hindsight is 50-50 or 50-50 or 20-20, whatever. Yeah, mixing my metaphors here. And I don't think they would have realized, that early that they could do it by themselves. I think a lot of people need to have the experience with other people because it's scary. it's really scary to go out there by yourself and like, I don't know what's going to happen to me. I'm going to go do this by myself. Some people need that scaffolding, need that extra support to get through it. And that's okay. So if you're considering, if any of our listeners are considering walking the Camino and they're trying to figure out, okay, do I want to walk as a group? And there are plenty of tour companies that will offer that to you. And depending on what kind of Camino you want, there are places that do women only Caminos if you're looking for that. And then there's places that do offer yoga every day if you're into that. And there are places that offer mass and maybe a priest every day if you're into that. And then there are places that, there are groups and tour guides that offer like the really chic, picnic lunches and really stellar accommodations other than albergues and a little more refinements, I guess you could say. Or there's other companies that will help you have as an authentic pilgrimage as the next person. So, if you want more advice about that, we can definitely either revisit that in future episodes, or we can, you can figure out a way to answer some of those questions if you want to know. Because I will definitely, so I'll give a shout out to my tour operator, because I did go with a tour operator, and his name was Rui, and he and his wife, Yolanda, operate Utrea e Susa out of Spain, and most of their clientele are older Americans. So they offer the Casa Rurales, they offer hotels, and they offer meals paid for, and a little more support. But he also I've been working with him on this project because I said I don't want my students to have the experience of a privileged American. I want them to have a more humbling experience. To put it, I mean, that sounds horrible, but I'm like, I want them to have an experience of a normal pilgrim on the Camino de Santiago as much as possible. And that if that means, staying in albergues that are less than, 4-star, I'm okay with that. Because that's where we stayed in several lovely albergues, and we stayed in a few that they'll definitely have stories to tell about that experience, because, it wasn't what it was all cracked up to be. And, so they'll still have that. But,
but you know what, part of the whole Camino experience, and being a pilgrim, is that it is really a reflection, of our faith, of who we are as people and who we are as Catholics, in terms of, being humble and being grateful for everything that is, being, given to us, of being of service to others, because you just never know, when you are going to be, needed, to assist or help someone, and it's also about, understanding, and whenever we get annoyed, with others, it's like, how many times do you have to forgive? 70 times 7. And
you will get annoyed on pilgrimage. It's just kind of it goes along with it. It goes along with the whole high highs and the low lows of this kind of pilgrimage. Is not supposed to be a 5-star catered every whim experience. It's supposed to be, it's supposed to be,
it's a microcosm of life. That's what it is. It's a microcosm in life. I mean, it's in our everyday life, we find struggles, whether they're financial or with family or with the home or with illness or, things, unexpected things. The Camino is exactly that. It's exactly that. In 30 days, if you want to go and do the whole thing.
Yeah. Yes. And we're going to touch more on the Camino de Santiago in another episode too. That's basically when we're talking about pilgrimage, sometimes that's kind of like, we talk about the Camino, but we also talk about other things. So we tend to default Camino because that's our experiences, but we're going to talk about other pilgrimages, and it all kind of, they're different, but they're also the same in a lot of different ways. Right. So what do you think the benefit of taking just one or two other people with you on pilgrimage? What do you think how's that different than going solo or with a group? Or is it?
I think it's a different experience. I think when you go with one more person or perhaps, two others, it really kind of forces you to think as a team, about cooperation, about watching out for each other, also resolving conflict. In some cases, we come out stronger because of it. In other cases, we come to realize, that it's not what we thought. In some cases, friendships like ours, they deepen. In other cases, friendships just like disappear, because they were not built on a solid foundation.
Right.
And the other thing too is that, and that's one of the things about like the Camino that, they say that when things become very difficult, that's when you know who your true friends are. And that happens a lot also, like on the Camino, just like it happens in real life, that, you really truly realize who are the people that are not only solid on the inside, but they're also pretty solid with you. And when you are able to discover those friendships and see the value of those friendships, you treasure them.
Oh, yeah. You know what? I had something very special happen to me while I was on this last group pilgrimage. And it has to do with time before my second Camino was, I took a friend with me, and she's still a good friend. And but we met this Dutch woman, Esther. And Esther and I ended up walking the entire Camino together, whereas my friend that I brought with me from the United States, she and I had to separate for a little time so that we can not, hate each other at the end of the Camino. We had to get some space, and that happens. So she did her own Camino and I did my own Camino, and it worked out just fine. But Esther joined me for 2 days on my Camino. She came out and walked with me for 2, and it was fabulous because it was like an old friend joining you on the Camino, and we walked 2 days together. And I told her next year, because I'm already planning for next year because I'm doing the Portuguese route. I'm doing it back to back, 2 different groups, and we'll see if I actually get this accomplished. And I'm like, you need to go with me next time. So, I've gotten to the point of being able to invite people to go with me. I have to admit that one thing I missed about being part of a group that I wish I could have had more as the individual experience was, I felt like I didn't encounter as many other people other than my group. I would have loved to have met more people from other countries or other walks of life other than dealing with people within my group. And that's just part of being part of the group. I met some lovely people. I would have appreciated walking with them a little more, but I just didn't have the opportunity to do that because I was, mama hen for 16 people who had never walked the Camino before in their life.
Then again, just think about, the incredible gift that you gave all those young people.
Oh, and that was the one thing I'm like, I really hope that as a group leader, I really hope that they get out of the Camino. I always hope that they, have a experience with God and their faith deepens, and their relationship with God deepens, but I can't control that. And that's just my Catholicness kind of wanting that to happen. And the reality is some of my students were not were agnostic or atheist, and I had to be okay with that. But I also wanted them to have the self-confidence and self-knowledge and the self-love that, you know, accepting who you are as a person, flaws and all, and knowing you can do this. You can set one foot in front of the other. You can walk past difficult situations and emerge on the other side triumphant. And I think that's what they all learned. I think that was the biggest gift I think the Camino has to offer, no matter what your religious values are. And
yeah,
I'm pretty sure most of them got that. It's like, oh yes, I can do whatever I set my mind to.
You know what is, I was just, you know, thinking, just kind of reminiscing of the experiences, you know, that like I have had and that they have stuck with me, is that if any of your students just look at a stranger and smile, and that in itself, you know, is going to change that person's day, you know?
Right.
If they just like see a stranger that is having like a very difficult time and it's like, hey, do you need a hug? You know, for no other reason than just to be of service. I think you did your job, and I'm pretty sure that you did it extremely well.
Well, thank you. I always hope, you know, I'm sure I had some flaws, but everybody does. One more thing before we wrap up, and this is, I don't want to end on a negative note, but I want to point an observation, which is the people who brought, I had 2 couples on my trip. So 2 romantic couples. And my biggest fear was, please don't break up. Because we talked about that earlier. Like, please don't break up. Because there's no way I can safely, you know, have you leave the group if you can't get along with this other person. And we didn't. I'm happy to say that both of our couples survived.
Yay!
Yay! But I also noticed that they were glued at the hip. And I know this is probably my Camino and not their Camino, but I was hoping they would be a chance for them to walk by themselves occasionally and have their own experience, as opposed to, where's my partner? I need to have my partner with me every step of the moment. And
then again, if they didn't kill each other on the Camino, chances are they're going to stick it out.
Yeah. Well, and I one of my youngest students, they were this cute little couple, and I'm like, they're going to get married and have babies. They're going to have pretty babies. And it's just kind of a happy realization that this is like the beginning of that lifelong partnership, I hope. You know, but I'm being all poetic and romantic and not very realistic, but it's nice to think that way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But anyway, we're going to have to wrap this up, because we're going to talk about the Camino a little bit more in upcoming episodes. But until then, we wanted to wish every single one of you a buen Camino.
And remember, find the sacred in everyday life.